Good morning, class. This is your English teacher, Sir Sanjay. I welcome you all to yet another session of YouTube, wherein we discuss lessons from English honeydew text, English supplementary, and English grammar from time to time. As we are not able to attend school regularly due to a devastating pandemic, a virus that is out on the loose, the same virus has affected our life in a number of ways. That is why we have modified our learning methods and modules. So here I'm back with yet another video. This time I've decided to take the third unit of English honeydew text by the name, as you can clearly see, Glimpses of the Past. Okay, past refers to things that have already happened or occurred. Glimpses will basically relate or take us to account of few of the important happenings in the past. Alright. So before we read, here is a brief preface. We are going to read about British India and the impact Britishers had, negative impact if you can say, on the lives of Indian, how they created so much division in India, thereby affecting and in a way denting our country in ways we can never imagine. Alright. So without any further delay, class, let's take up the lesson. Third unit, Glimpses of the Past. Okay, here we are. Unit 3, Glimpses of the Past. So let's just begin with a brief warm-up before the lesson that is provided over here. It says, here are some pictorial glimpses. What do we mean by pictorial glimpses? Glimpses present in the form of picture. Like you must have read accounts and information based on pictures, right? So here is one such important pictorial glimpse of the history of our country, and it dates from 1757 to 1857. That is about 100 years. Some very important events took place in the period of this 100 years. Now what these pictures will do is, this pictures will have this pictures and speech bubbles will help clarify our understanding of the condition that led to the event known as First War of Independence. So there is a very famous event by the name First War of Independence that took place in the year 1857. Okay, in the year 1857, India's first war of independence took place. So today, right here, we are going to learn about that account. Okay, so let's see, what is it? So the first pictograph reads the martyrs. What do we mean by martyrs? Martyrs are those brave hearts who have laid down their lives for their country. These are the bravest patriots. Okay, so we talk about some martyrs, popular name like Bhagat Singh. Okay, then Subhash Chandra Bose, right? Etc. comes to our mind. Okay, so let's just observe the first picture. What is it about? This is a picture of a very famous Indian playback singer by the name, I'm sure all of you know her already, very famous. Now she is quite aged, but she's sung a number of songs. Okay, Lata Mangeshkar, popularly known as Lata Didi in the music industry, highly revered and respected. Okay, the voice of India, you can say modern India, as far as singing is concerned. Okay, so alongside her, we have this gentleman. I'm sure all of you know who he is. He is Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, who's Jawaharlal Nehru? Everyone knows this basic GK, right? He was the first Prime Minister of independent India. Then, on Nehru's left, you can say, or beside Nehru, we have Shastri. What is his full name? His full name is Lal Bahadur Shastri. Now, Lal Bahadur Shastri was also a very brave soul of India, who's done plenty of work and who himself, has fought really very hard for a number of coups. And beside Lal Bahadur Shastri is Indira Gandhi. Now, who's Indira Gandhi? Indira Gandhi is daughter of Nehru. Okay. So there is a function. As you can see, it's attended by a number of people, isn't it? So there is this function, and at a function in Delhi. This function takes place in Delhi. So Lata Didi sings a wonderful song. She says, "Oh my countrymen, let your eyes fill with tears as you recall the sacrifices of India's martyrs." Okay. So this actually is a translation of a very popular patriotic song in Hindi that goes by the lyrics. I'll just quote it for you. मेरे वतन के लोगों ज़रा आँखों में भर लो पानी जो शहीद हुए हैं उनकी just ज़रा याद करो कुर्बानी. Okay, it's a very very lovely song. So as Lata Mangeshkar sang this song, people were in tears. They remembered the mighty sacrifices people have had. They went through number of sacrifices to be able to bring forward this independence. The reason we are able to breathe in free air is because of this number of people who laid down their life and fought quite hard. Okay. So some important personalities are here. Find out their names. Okay. I'm sure you know most of them. That's Rani Lakshmi Bai, isn't it? Find out the rest. All popular known faces. Okay. The other names, I have mentioned some other names already, so that's your work, children. Moving on. Now, second pictograph. What is it? The Companys Conquest, 1757 to 1849. Almost number of years, isn't it? Company here refers to East India Company. The Britishers came to India in 17th century, 1600 itself they started coming to India as businessmen, and then slowly and slowly they ruined our country in a number of ways we cannot imagine. Okay, this is the Companys Conquest. How it started? Conquering our land. Let's find out by reading this pictograph. So you can see in the picture clearly. I'll just zoom it up for better visibility. It says, first picture, just a sec class. With its superior weapons, the British East India Company was extending its power in 18th century India. In 18th century India, the British East India Company, who primarily came in as businessmen, started expanding their occupation of India. Clear? You see, this is what undivided India used to look like. Yeah, some of this are now separated. There is Bangladesh, then there is Pakistan, there is these, that. This never used to be there. Now, Indian princess. The color yellow in the outline map of India represents the portion occupied by Indian princes, and then the pink color represents the territory owned by British. Okay. So they slowly and slowly started taking in lead. Okay, so Indian princes were short-sighted. Indian princes were full of false pride. Clear. They never knew what was the secret hidden design the Britishers had. Okay, so what does it say? It says that upstart Raja Bah call the English merchants. They'll help me defeat him. So see, interracial conflict between Indians, and then they are trying to involve Britishers here. This is what led to the downfall of Indian princes. There was so much ego. There is something called ego, then there is another thing by the name self-respect. You should always have self-respect, but then there is a big no-no to ego. Okay. The people had no peace due to such constant fights. Princes, kings, they used to fight constantly. Okay. Moving on, see the Britishers in some kind of engagement. What is it? Let's see. The rivalries helped the East India Company, and it could easily subdue Indian princes one by one. So they weakened the Indian princes one by one, as the Indian princes were filled with ego, and then they took help of Britishers, and then Britishers started encroaching slowly and slowly. Now this person is known as Tipu Sultan. Why is he famous? Why is he popular? Let's find out. A far-seeing ruler like the brave Tipu of Mysore had fought the British till he died fighting. So brave was Tipu that he fought British till his last breath. He did not allow them to actually conquer any of his land or whatsoever you'd like to call. Okay. So what do we have here? Some people are in conversation. Okay. Now how did Indian react to this conquest? Let's find out. Someone says, thank God, there is peace in the country now. No more wars and no looting by thugs. It is God who sent the British. The other says, third one says, our destiny is linked with them. Britishers will help us. So all this are foolish opinion, is what I would like to say. Okay. Because this opinion is what is going to ruin so many Indians. It will rob them of their land, their occupation, and their artistry. Now the white man has killed or dethroned our kings. Some kings were not good, but after all, they were of this land. Now we have become slaves of foreigners. So some were not aware. There was mixed reaction, isn't it? These people, I would like to call them naive, but then they were, they were realizing. They thought, yeah, some kings were over the top with the way they reacted. But then these are Indian people, and then we should try to solve this conflict within ourselves without engaging or involving someone who's not of this country. Okay. Now what happened? Third pictograph, British rule begins 1765 to 1836. Religious leaders preached ideas like untouchability and child marriage. Okay. So they started preaching ideas like untouchability. Means one community looking down upon another, inability to touch these and that, and child marriage. Okay. This was of course a huge problem back then. Okay. So religious leader says anyone who crosses seas loses his religion. So this propagates this theory. He says all the misery in the world is due to woman. Another man says. Okay, so they are preaching different things. Okay. So now how are the Britishers reacting? Let's find out. The truth was that Indians had lost self-respect. This is very important. That is why I was telling you. Ego versus self-respect. Self-respect is very important. So the British scorned them. They would scold them and they'll take them to any level. Okay. So what does this slide say? Let's see. This man says, the natives are unworthy of trust, incapable of honesty. We cannot trust this native people, the local people. So this one, like a downtrodden person, what does he say? He says, true, I agree with you. Your Honor, but I'm honest. He says, yeah, whatever you're saying is true. So he's confirming that his own people are not worthy of belief. So this is wrong. Now what happens as we move on to next picture? Being merchants, businessmen, the British wanted quick profit. Okay, this was one another problem the Britishers had. They wanted quick profit. Their heavy taxes forced farmers to abandon their fields. So there used to be heavy taxes. They levied heavy taxes upon farmer. Okay, so what did farmer do? Farmer used to abandon, leave their field, unable to pay the heavy taxes. Okay, so now there is an engagement between Britishers and some farmers. Let's find out what is it about. What does it say? It says the poor farmer here says, "But you men are taking all my crop." He says, "You are still in arrears, and we pay you money from time to time. You are taking money from ourselves. If you don't pay next week, I'll send you to jail." See, they came to our land, they extended their occupation, expanded it. Now they started attacking our farmers by paying them some pittance in the name of area, and then slowly and slowly robbing them of their land. So very, very devilish, I would like to call it. Okay. So now what happened in the following slides? Let's find out. Still, the British invented other methods which gave them more profit. The Britishers came out with idea after another, one idea after another that gave them more profit. Okay. So what does this man have to say? He says the goods manufactured in England should not have any import duty. Import duty here refers to tax. Okay. When brought into India. So see, this was one devil idea. Because in England was way developed back then. They had this machine made things and all, everything introduced. So now what they decided is when those goods that were manufactured in England came to India, it would be sold without any tax at all. So the others confirm, they say a good idea. So now the East India companies laws begin to cripple Indian industries. So Indian industries were hard hit because Indian industries, they did not have big factories, huge machineries were missing, isn't it? Huge machineries were missing. There weren't big factories, isn't it? Everything was done by skilled laborers and worker, and it used to take long time. But then British made goods and all. It did not take time as long as the handmade, work by Indian businessmen or Indian industries used to do. But then people, they actually always, this is where the problem arises, class. People tend to go for shortcut, quick fix. Quick fix is one word you should be wary of. So quick fix is what did in the Indians here. Instead of supporting their own brother and sister, they went for supporting the Britishers, and this is what had caused them caused massive suffering for the Indians. Okay, what happened here in the slide? Let's see. The farmers were robbed of their land, isn't it? And then what happened? Inevitably meant something that cannot be avoided. Okay, inevitably famines followed. Between 1822 and 1836, 15 lakh Indians died of starvation. Starvation without having anything to eat. That's a very, very, very gruesome situation, isn't it? 15 lakh, class, just imagine. It's a huge number, right? 15 lakhs people died without getting anything to eat. The British policies ruined the expert artisans and their business. There used to be some expert artisans who were, famed for making designer clothes, zari, these and that. We call them by various names, isn't it? Bandana, zari, any other form of artistry. Now, British policies, they kind of ruined them. They had nothing to eat, and then they had to starve and die or run out of business. Now comes one very significant man from Bengal. Remember the name? Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Why is important? How is important? Let's find out. A brilliant person, actually. Ram Mohan Roy, a learned man, he was educated. This is what class, social stigma, problems, and all everything might occur. We, as a student teacher community, we have got a greater responsibility to try and solve these things. Okay. So, Ram Mohan Roy was a learned man from Bengal. He understood what was wrong with the country. Okay. So he has a discussion with someone. Let's find out what is it. He says, let us not despise ourselves. Our ancient culture is great. And we are capable of great achievements. Superstitions, false belief, believing in things that have no conclusive evidence of being true at all. False belief, let's say, have been ruining us. So Raja says, we have been creating our own problem. We have been our own troublemaker. Let us stop this. The ancient culture that we have been following, some aspect of ancient culture that we have been following has been crippling us. We are capable of achieving great success, and then some superstitions are ruining us. Okay, this is what Raja says. Right. Now, what happens in the next slide? Let's see. He told his wife Uma, he had a wife by the name Uma. He says cows are of different colors, but the color of their milk is the same, isn't it? Some are brown, some are black, some are white, but then they all give the same colored milk, white. Different teachers have different opinions. Teachers also, they may have different opinion, different teaching style, isn't it? But the essence of every religion is same. What every religion wants to teach is the same as what Raja tells his wife Uma. Okay. Now what happens? Let's find out. He was attracted by science and modern knowledge. This is important. Science and modern knowledge attracted him. He wanted to learn. This is what class. Develop the ability to learn, be inquisitive. So he says knowledge should be practical and scientific. There should be, practicality and science-based education is what he wanted to propagate. So now what happened? He crossed the seas and went to England to see what made the British powerful. Then he told them, what did he tell them? He said, we accept you as rulers. Clear? He was great in admitting this. He said, we accept you as rulers, but what? And you must accept us as subjects. But you must remember the responsibility a ruler owes to his subject. Okay, so he gave this powerful propagation. He says, even though if you want to rule us for some time, you have your fair share of responsibility towards us. You cannot demean us the way you all are doing, is what Raja said. Brave effort by Raja. Okay. Now, one important thing here, see, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he started his own newspaper. But the Britishers, they began to grow suspicion, doubt about it, and they stopped it forcibly by 1823. So this was unfair. You say freedom of speech and expression. That wasn't evident in this case at least. Moving on to oppression now. To suppress someone, to forcibly make someone do something, isn't it? To not allow someone to speak freely is what suppression is. It took place from 1765 to 1835. Where is it? Let's find out. But the British continued to oppress Indians. In 1818, they had passed Regulation 3. Now this Regulation 3 is the most controversial thing you can call it. Under it, an Indian could be jailed without trial in a court. So without having any fair trial and all, any Indian could be jailed. So this was very, very dangerous, you can say. Any Indian would be put behind the bars without having to assign them any particular reason, isn't it? So all the time, British officers in India drew big salaries and also fortunes in private business. Okay. So at the same time, Britishers were coming, enjoying India, and then they were holding position of high positions, which helped them earn huge sum and all. Okay. So let's move on class now towards next picture. By 1829, Britain was exporting British goods worth 7 crore rupees to India. So Britain started treating India as a huge market of its finished good. They started trading about 7 crore rupees products to India. Imagine how huge the figure might have been if it were this era, this time. Okay, so what happens? Governor General Bentinck reported back home. So Bentinck went back home, and what does he say? Okay, I missed out on this point. See this one. He says the British prospered on the company's loot while Indian industries began to die, isn't it? So British industries were having a booming time while Indian industries were dying. So Governor General Bentinck reported back home. He says the bones of cotton weavers are bleaching the plains of India. Okay, so cotton weavers are what they are talking about. They have been targeted specifically, and he has given a very cruel review back at home. So now dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction occurs when you don't like something that is really gruesome. So now education in India was in Persian and Sanskrit. In 1835, an Englishman named Macaulay. So this Macaulay has caused a lot of problem in Indian education system, So he suggested a change. He said we should teach native through English language. So this wasn't fair, isn't it? Even if they wanted to introduce English language, there must have been a conducive manner. All of a sudden, it's like invading someone's culture and introducing something fresh without giving any sort of adjustment time, if you would like to call it. So another one agrees. Okay. So they'll be changing India's education policy. So English education produce clerks. This is important, clear. India's Gurukul system is considered best. Why? Because we focus on all round development of a child. Intellectual, sports. Schools like Ramakrishna Mission School. Why are we famed? Because we do not merely focus on children's textbook completion of syllabus prescribed in the textbook. We look forward to giving all-round education to each and every child as far as practicable and possible. We focus on sports. We focus on extracurricular activities. Okay, Gurukul system is where you learn everything, ranging from there is this word called you learn physical defense. You learn about religious books. You learn how to discipline yourself. You learn books, so many wonderful things. Okay, so they had completely destroyed those systems, and they started imparting minimal sort of education in order to produce clerks. Okay, no job is small, but then not everyone is made or born to be clerk, right? Some are destined to be much better than what a normal clerk should be. Okay, so English education produced clerks to whom the British gave petty jobs under them. They used to give them some small job. Okay. Incidentally, it also produced a new generation of intellectuals. But then some intellectuals were also produced. So what was being discussed? Three men are in conversation. What do they say? They say, we must educate our brothers and try to improve their material conditions. For that, we must convey our grievances to the British Parliament. So this is what, see, another group of individuals, generation of intellectuals were also growing. Okay. Now initially, class, you must have observed the map. It was more of yellow and quite less of pink, if you'd like to call it. Now it's more of a pink, and just parts are green, yellow to be precise. right? So what does this show? The British were expanding, isn't it? British has conquered the whole of India. They cared little about the needs of Indians. So now some Indians are in conversation again. He says, our kings have become puppets. You must have seen what puppets are, isn't it? These are simple stuffed basically a stuffed movable model of a man, let's say, made of clothes and all, and attached to strings. Okay, attached to strings with which they can, be moved. So there is very famous puppet dance show that is prevalent in states like Rajasthan and India. It's huge part of their culture. Okay. So now, what are they talking about? They say, this puppet, this kings have become puppet of the British. Okay, and lands. They are converting our brothers. So, religion, forceful conversion was there. What happens? Forceful conversions also used to take place. You only talk, do something to drive them out. So, somebody growing angry says, you are just talking, unnecessary. Go do something. So now let's move on. Here we are. The sparks. What is it? Taxes continue to ruin the peasants. The farmers were ruined due to growing taxes. Okay. So in Bengal, the Santals, very important. These are really brave, the Santals. The Santals who had lost their lands under new land rules became desperate. They became angry. Okay. In 1855, they rose in rebellion. They were no longer in acceptance of whatever was happening against them. So they started and massacred Europeans and their supporters alike. Whoever was supporting Europeans were also killed or massacred. Massacre refers to a term that basically is killing a large number of people together. Okay, so yeah, it seemed like it was out of the it was not bearable any longer for them. Okay, so discontent was brewing in the East India Company's army too. So East India Company had some Indian army as well. Okay, they were also dissatisfied. Why? Some people were saying, the white soldier gets huge pay, mansion, huge place to live, and then they have servants as well. Well, we get a pittance and slow promotion. Indians say we get nothing, very slow promotion. The Angrez refers to Britishers. The Angrez asks us to cross the sea, which is against our religion. Some religious beliefs also come up here. Who is the Topiwala to abolish our age-old custom? So some says this Topiwalas, this Britishers, and nobody to abolish our culture. So here comes the rise of Mangal Pandey, very brave person. Not much of an account is mentioned here. So Mangal Pandey led a huge rebellion, and then he was a martyr. So Sepoy Mangal Pandey attacked the adjutant of his regiment and was executed. So he was punished. Okay. Thousands of other sepoys revolted after this. They were stripped of their uniform, so they were no longer allowed to continue with their service. But this was evident, isn't it? Discontent was growing. They were not only, stripped of their uniform, they were humiliated, insulted, and put in irons. So they were also punished for supporting Mangal Pandey. But enough is enough. It was the end of limit, isn't it? Few Englishmen had cared to understand Indian custom or the people's mind. Not many of them cared to understand. So someone said, oh proud Brahmin soldiers, do you know that the grease of the bullet you have to bite is made from the fat of cow and pig? What? The white man has deceived us too. So cows are sacred to Hindus, Brahmins, and then the Muslims, they don't like particularly the animal called pig. Okay, so they were both this, so it was against both the cultures, isn't it? So one Hindu Brahmin, when he get to know that they had to bite the fat of cows, they have to bite bullet. The bullet they bite is smoothened with grease made from fat of cow and pig. So this angered both Muslim and Hindu. Okay, now what happens? Soon changes were chapatis. Chapatis were sent from village to village to tell people that their emperor would want their service. Chapatis here refers to roti. Okay, rotis were sent from village to village, and it used to be kind of message that emperor, the king, would want their service. Okay, what kind of service are we talking about? Let's find out. Service here refers to, it used to be secret code. Okay, so whenever chapatis were sent from one village to another village, the message was clear. King was asking them to be ready for help. So he says, yes, all my village men will be ready. Okay, similarly, lotus flowers circulated among Indian soldiers. Okay, so they say, death to the foreigner. The masses gave all help and shelter to the patriots. Okay, so people were coming together to fight. Now what happens? The revolt took place. Okay, then there was a violent outbreak in Meerut. In Meerut, a violent outbreak took place. You see, killings and firings and all. Right. The Sepoy marched to Delhi. So they all gathered and marched to Delhi. So they started hailing the king. They say, long live our emperor, Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah was the king then. Here he is. The rebellion spread wide. So it spread far and wide across the nation. Okay. Many landlords had lost their lands because of the British policies, and they were angry as well. So some people, some rebellion came and approached them. They say, the white man rule must end. They say, yes, we will help you. Okay. So this was conclusion of pictograph number 8. Now pictograph number 9, class. Let's take a look quickly. The fight for freedom, 1857. Important one here. What does it say? It says, many former rulers like Begum Hazrat Mahal of Lucknow were bitter. They were angry. So what does she say? She says, the white man has taken away my kingdom. So her land, her kingdom were taken away by this people. Popular leaders like Maulvi Ahmadullah of Faizabad told the people. So he says, rise brothers, rise. The Angrez is ruining our land. They are just ruining our culture and land. So they joined the upsurge against the foreigner. So they all joined the hand. They came together. Okay. The people rose everywhere. In Bareilly, Kanpur and Allahabad, they started rising in large number. They came together. Okay. So Azimullah Khan told Tatya Tope. Azimullah Khan says something to Tatya Tope. What does he say? He says, we should have Peshwa Nana Sahib as our leader in this war of independence. Okay. One very brave account, class. 80-year-old King Kuwar Singh of Bihar received a bullet in his wrist. What does he do next? Will shock you. He chops off his hand. He cuts his hand and says, Mother Ganga. Ganga is our sacred river, isn't it? He says, this is my last offering to you. So he continued fighting till then. Such used to be the bravery. Okay. Now the patriots, they came up together and pounced upon the British and fought pitched battles all over North India. So this was what class? So very wonderful, isn't it? So this pictograph was made by S.D. Sawant. It comes from our freedom movement. Okay, class. So this presented us with a brief account of how things went back then, right? So class, there is this comprehension check. It is going to be easy. Look at the picture and you have to name all the people who sang the original song. The lyrics I already told you, it's मेरे वतन के लोगों जरा आँखों में भर लो पानी. Then more picture questions, so I'm not helping you with those. Then working with text. Do you think the Indian princess was short-sighted? Absolutely yes. How did East India Company subdue the Indian princess? So there is a particular mention in this question, easy, so solve them. Then there is working with language. In comics, what the characters speak is put in bubble. This is direct narration. When we report what the characters speak, so narration exercise based on narration is here. Class, just go through, just read them once, okay, and then try and solve the following exercises. Yeah, so this is the conclusion, class. I believe you understood and enjoy this piece. It's about the great history of Indian freedom struggle. Of course, India got freedom in 47, but then attempts and efforts were made from and for a long time, isn't it? With this, we come to conclusion of today's session. Thank you, everyone. Let's wind it up here. Bye bye.